down the shore at a meeting of the African American Equality Commission. And I saw then that he was a very vibrant, energetic, enthusiastic comrade of ours who has a lot of love for the working class and its movement. He's currently serving as the New York District Chair of the Communist Party USA. Traveling with us today, we're very, again, pleased and privileged to have him with us. Please direct your attention to Esteban Bassett Nembhard.
Thank you for such a kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation out here. It's a very wonderful event. I know I don't sound as good as her, but you ain't got to do that to me. Can y'all hear that or no? Yeah, okay, fine. So thank you very much for the invitation to come out here. I first have to say, I know we are in 2015, but this is the 2014 celebration. So when you get another invitation later on this year, don't feel like it was a mistake by the people's world. This is the 2014 event. As you all know, we've been very active in the field. You know, from the fights in Ferguson and New York around police brutality and this election. So when it was time in the early December to have our events, our banquets for the newspapers, everybody had theirs the same day in Connecticut, in New York, in Chicago. We actually all had one on December 7th, so that's why James had to put the date back a little bit. There we go. Now it's started. So I just wanted to start off today, actually not on the topic of low-wage workers, something that's very connected though. I've been, in the past year, 2014, I went two separate occasions. I went out to Ferguson.
That sounds good.
And I was out there basically with the young people, with the, you know.
Yes, it's all right. Okay, we got it all set.
Fighting out there,
it's a good thing.
Saying that Black Lives Matter. Fighting against every 28 hours, a Black or Latino is killed by law enforcement or vigilantes.
Okay,
and that's been happening for some time. But basically, a national movement that has captured the imaginations and the hearts of the world has picked up in response. And I was out there with majority white people.
Yes, they did.
I was out there with all ages, with labor, with faith. Out, you know, so it was really a beautiful thing to see that this movement defending Black lives against police brutality being embraced by so many people. And I think it's a very important thing to speak about when we talk about low-wage workers, because we are actually becoming a low-wage nation.
It started already.
And just like when we think about the police murders and the police brutality that takes place, the picture that we have of that is the attack that's taking place, the racist assault that's happening to Black and Latinos. But a simple look at data will tell you that the majority of people who are killed by the police are white people.
Okay.
Going on with that, when we think about this question of this being a low-wage nation, the fact is that in my home of New York, where the movement of organizing fast food workers was born, in the face of poverty, that criminalized black face of poverty that's been put out by the mass media, that's been put out, is a lie. The majority of poor people in New York State are white. The majority of poor children in New York State are white. So what we're beginning to see now, though, between the various fights for fast food workers, between the for a living wage for $15 and the right to form a union, when we think about all these young people and people of all generations, black, white, all races, fighting, saying that Black Lives Matter, what we're seeing is the people of this country going head-to-head against the 1% and its attack on the 99%. And the fact is that you cannot do that in this country without fighting racism. So what we're seeing right now, basically, is in the case of the low-wage workers organizing, is the most oppressed workers are on the move. The most oppressed workers in this country are on the move. and they are being supported not only by the labor movement. Obviously, that's very important to speak about, because without the Our Walmart campaigns that that had found these young leaders and so on, it wouldn't have started. But they're going forward now with support of faith. With faith, there's very strong faith supporting these, and with the overwhelming support of public opinion. And this is all of our communities basically are either the results of where this has won, or the reality of where this hasn't won yet, this movement to bring living wages. When I say that, I'm just saying that, as we know, every job was a low-wage job until people organized and made it a decent paying job. So we could think back, I'm sure it's the same here, but sanitation workers, in New York City, and I'm sure in Philadelphia too, that's a good job to be a sanitation worker. Well, you and I know Martin Luther King got killed by organizing sanitation workers. They were low-wage workers when he was down there marching the streets with them. More recently, we don't have to go that far back, though, to see when we've been changing reality. The janitors in the Southwest, throughout the South, the Justice for Janitors campaign really changed the nature of that job. People who were cleaning and maintaining the most expensive buildings in the world couldn't pay their bills, couldn't support their families. That's now, in many cases, a living wage job where people are getting starting with $20 an hour and so on. Struggle, this is fight. A couple years after I met Jane, I traveled the country with the Service Employees Union. I was organizing home care workers, who care for people in need. Again, this is a low wage job, and in some cases that people have gotten out of that, but that's a fight that's still going on right now, with people trying to organize and get conditions and improve conditions. In certain cases, like in Massachusetts, I was a part of a campaign there where they actually had to change the law of the state because they were seen as independent contractors. So they couldn't collectively bargain. So we actually had to do political action and change the law. So what we find is throughout, I don't got to give a history lesson to people here. I'm sure that everyone should probably give me a history lesson. But the fact is that in general, the fight of low-wage workers to organize, it's always been bigger than just a labor struggle. It's been a labor struggle, but they needed the support of the community, because in certain times, it wasn't just to enforce the law, it was to change the law so that they could be protected by it, So this is the case. So in these cases, it's not only union organizing, but it's also political organizing, community organizing, creating political power, basically. So what has taken place so far with the case of the Walmart workers, with the case of the fast food workers? Well, the first thing is, we remember, a couple of years back when there was the Occupy Wall Street, and this was after the birth of the Tea Party, and the whole idea that we are the 99%, and just kind of how much support that was given, and how much sympathy there was for the cause of fighting injustice and inequality. Then it started getting colder, because remember that started in September, and it started getting colder and colder and colder and colder, and you say, wow, I know that this ain't going to be able to keep up forever out there in that park, right? Well, guess what? These workers of Walmart and the fast food chains have basically helped everybody who felt sympathy for that to find where Wall Street is in their neighborhood. There is a Wall Street in your zip code. Some of these, yeah, that's what the McDonald's is, that's what the Burger King is, that's what the Walmart is, And these are in every community has one of these. How can we sustain this fight against the 1%, against this injustice? This gave a very concrete way for us to keep that fight going, and the people have been doing that. So basically now, the low-wage workers and the community that supports them basically has set their sights now on the richest corporations in the world. And that's when we're talking about McDonald's and Walmart, that's what we're talking about right now, Okay. So in addition to that, in a number of states we've actually won. They've won the $15 minimum wage increase. And more recently, when we just came from this midterm election, we found that even when the Republicans won, they you know, in all these states where they won, their support was a mile wide, but it didn't stick. Because those same voters that voted for the Republicans, they voted for minimum wage increases. You know? So we find that in states, even states where the Republicans have been able to win the election and maintain control of that, or gain control, that this movement for raising minimum wage has great support. In addition, the president, President Obama, he was pushed by this movement to raise the wage of all federal workers and federal contractors. I'm sorry. And remember that this is basically, when we think back, this was one of the first executive actions that he took. You know, and when we see what's happening right now with the president swimming in with what's happening with Cuba and with the immigration decision. This is a very important and concrete way that the people's movement has basically been able to push to get agenda happen, that agenda and legislation happen that concretely improves people's lives. So that's kind of the legislative side. Another part is the enforcement of existing laws. We've all said that the labor law isn't strong enough right now, but the fact is that this weak law, the weak laws that we have right now aren't even enforced in many cases with low-wage workers. The cases of wage theft, the cases of wage theft, people, I guess, if you don't get breaks and so on, that's wage theft too. So the wage theft is a real thing, and discrimination and so on at the job. So this also gave concrete power to enforce the existing law and movement and so on behind it. In addition, a base of support for the independent base of support, an immediate base of support for the for forces of political independence that exist within and without the Democratic Party. And that's a real thing, because like in New York City, in New York State, we have the Working Families Party. Does the Working Families Party exist out here? No. I'm sorry about that. I need that. You can vote me out. The Working Families Party, what that is basically it's a kind of collaboration between labor and community organizations, and what they do is they get behind different legislations in a lot of cases and like minimum wage stuff. And basically, they get candidates to endorse that platform, and the voters can basically vote for them. But it'll be like the same candidate who's running as a Democrat, but you could vote for that candidate on this line, and they'll get support. So anyway, so this has like the $15 minimum wage is really giving a very concrete thing for people to vote for and to say we want to build this party, we want to make it a real force on the ground. Okay, so how have they been doing it? Well, I'm sure everybody, how many people here participated in one of the one-day strikes that take place over the past 2 years? We got to handle more people. Wow. All right, so good thing I came. Okay, so basically there are one-day strikes that are around 2 years ago they started. And what it is that the workers it started basically in New York City, where they called on all the workers in fast food to come out on a strike. Obviously, not every fast food worker in New York City came out on a strike, but in dozens of stores, groups of like 4 or 5 workers walked out, and they basically had rallies where local clergy, elected officials, and activists like ourselves came out and supported them. And it started off, kind of rather timid and stiff. A couple strikes into it, the people were basically changing rap songs into chants. Like, I don't know if y'all know 2 Chainz, but started from the bottom, now we here, say what? Like, that was one of the first ones they did, but then they kept on building on that, and amazing thing. But so they had those. I think by now there's been around 8 of those one-day strikes. Called New York. They basically started off being just in a couple cities. The last 3 were international. Workers in over 80 countries went out on strike with these workers from the United States. An amazing thing. And through all this, those same political connections are very visible. In all these rallies, so on, the faith community, the local elected officials, they are there elbow to elbow, you know, kind of with these this group of workers. So this is basically the latest. This didn't come out of nowhere. This kind of push for 15 in the union and the specific campaign with the fast food and the Walmart. It's basically the latest in a fight of low-wage workers for living wage. So when you look at basically taxi cab drivers, domestic workers, bank, restaurant employees, they're in all these different fields that are low wage. There are campaigns right now where basically unions and community organizations are working together to in drives to organize, and they're doing this. There's a number of different models, but all of them have strong community support pretty much at the center of them. And it's taking place in a very dynamic situation. So, for instance, and I know that this is very similar. I'm just going to stick to the New York example because I'm talking about education. I know I got a couple of experts out here, so I'm going to just talk about what I know in New York. But for instance, and this is happening in New York, but I think it's happening all across the country, but definitely in urban centers like here in Philadelphia. So that is that this whole kind of, so we talked about the attack of the 1% that's taking place in fast food wages. We talked about the attack of the 1% that's taking place through police violence, where there's no means to address the fact that the social safety net is being cut. You know, but what's being done is basically martial law is being imposed, and the state of siege is being put on these poor communities. Instead of there being, you know, social workers and so on put out to help these unemployed people or people that can't afford school, they send the police out there in these poor communities. So at the same time that all this is happening, there's a drive to privatization of public education and various services. So like in New York City, after there's been a 20-year basically regime of Republicans, Giuliani and Bloomberg. I'm sure y'all heard the names. But they've been cutting away school programs, closing down schools, co-locating schools, right? And then now after all this, and it's the same argument that was used. They say, "Oh my gosh, these failing schools. We need to try a new charter school. And it's the same thing. It sounds so similar to Bloomberg when he was talking about why we need to stop and frisk. You know, it's nothing about. Maybe I don't know. What he said is the reason why we need to stop and frisk in New York is because crime happens in the Black and Latino community. So it's not racist. We're just going where the crime is. Hey, we're just going where the crime is. And the same thing with the schools. Like, hey, you know, we're just going with bad schools. Don't mention that we've been cutting them for the past 20 years, you know, and we've been attacking the teachers and so on. So this is the nonsense, basically, that's the rationale behind this attack. It's a very dynamic one. So that on the public education, and then at the same time, that this attack is happening by the 1%, the People's Coalition is on the rise. So, for example, the two elections of Obama that took place against huge racist attacks. Racist attacks and money from the 1% is a big victory. And I know that sometimes because of what happened right now in this midterm election, you know, well, I mean, after that Cuba announcement and a couple other things, I know people ain't feeling too bad right now. But the fact is that it's definitely ebbs and flows. But we can't forget that New York City, at the same time that we've had these two victories at the federal, with the president being elected and re-elected, that this coalition is still on the move on the local level. So we look at the victory that we had in New York, the victory I just heard about today in our governor's race out here with the one-term governor. Newark, New Jersey, Ras Baraka, Amiri Baraka's son is the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, the largest city in New Jersey right now. You know? there's a big election coming up in Chicago that everybody knows about, where unfortunately the teacher Karen Lewis, I forget her name, her last name. Oh yeah, unfortunately Karen Lewis isn't able to run, but Chuy Mendoza, I believe, who's a great candidate, who is anyway, he's going to be running out there. So it's a lot of great possibilities like that. And then I would be messed up if I didn't mention California. In this past election cycle, you know, the same election cycle where all these Republicans won, the AFL-CIO was supporting a campaign that won, that actually decriminalized crime. I mean, but it's not decriminalized. They basically demoted, they lowered the classification on nonviolent crimes. Basically, like nonviolent crimes that were, I guess, felonies, they made them misdemeanors and so on, and that allowed tens of thousands of people who were currently incarcerated in California to come home. This was led by the AFL-CIO. Say again?
Richmond, California, where the oil interests run across the
Yeah, no, I mean, so it's a lot of them. It's a lot of. I mean, we're definitely getting hit too, but there's a lot of victories going on throughout the.
California also just passed paid earned 6 days statewide.
That's huge. Yeah, and that happened. That had happened in New York, but I think these type of things are happening across the country. It's huge. So at the same time that we can see all these positive things and these steps forward that have been taking place and these advances, the fact remains is that the coalition is still too inconsistent. You know, it needs to be strengthened, it needs to be solidified on the ground and in concrete ways. You know, like for concrete causes, I mean to say. So, for instance, there's a real attack that exists right now on labor right to organize. You know, like, so all these workers that we're talking about, they face retaliation. You know, like those same fast food workers that were in here, like, yeah, they're heroes. Like, they all face retaliation for the stuff that they're doing. The safety net is being cut. Like, food stamps has been cut 30%. I think it was like last year or 2 years ago it got cut. You know, so like this is real things. So like people, like, it's not like you had a full fridge, 5 years ago when you had food stamps. Now it's 30% less than what it was then. You know, so I mean this coalition is showing a lot of promise, but the fact is that it didn't just come out of thin air. It exists and it's been built because people are under attack, and it needs to do more to defend on the ground. So one key example I want to go on that is just when we just talked about one of the big parts of the attack of 1% in education. Well, in New York City, when we had the new city slate that came into power, one of the big things they campaigned on was early childhood education. Every study has found that if you want to improve people's lives, if you want to increase their living, their life expectancy, invest in early childhood education, right? So what's the plan?